It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It's Hump Day. And welcome to our primetime edition of Back Here with your boy, the car tender. Just talking about sports this weekend, along with other stuff. And one of our biggest deals, thank God in the NFL, the trade deadline has come and it has gone. Thank you. Because here in Philadelphia, we were worried about one A.J. Brown and if he was still going to be down. So like back in the day, they'd be like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? We would say like in the hood, like, what's up, man? You know what I'm saying? We still Brown? Meaning like, are we still cool? So it's like, AJ, are we still Brown? Are we still down? So there was a lot of speculation that AJ Brown, our top flight wide receiver, who I believe is behind maybe Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson. I would say he's probably the third best receiver in the league, and in some departments, probably the best receiver in the league as far as hands and route running and just different stuff like that. But the problem is that just like with everybody else, with all of us, we all want our own shine, right? We all want things to kind of go the way that we want to go it for selfish reasons. So when I try to think about this argument, I try to balance it out. Because football is a sport where there's a 53-man roster that goes out there every week. Does everybody play? No. But, we know how the game goes. The stars are going to be the stars. And A.J. Brown is making roughly, I think, $35 million per year. Okay? So, and people will say, because I used to kind of think like that. Oh, you're making a lot of money. You're doing your thing. So what is the issue here? What is the problem? Why are you seemingly unhappy? But when you start thinking about individual accolades, because I believe he's 29 or 30 now, so and you start thinking about football as such a rough sport, you still want to have your yards, your things, and he wants to be known amongst the greats, like the T.O.'s and the Jerry Rices and the Randy Mosses, because he does have that type of talent. But what happens is that for some reason, him and Jalen Hurts, that is, just can't seem to get on the same page as far as, I don't know. Last year, Brandon Graham stated that there was some type of rift between the two of them, but who knows, right? We'll never, in the regular public, ever really know. But what we do know is that the production just seems off. It seems a little odd. And it even goes back to last year where AJ was on the sidelines reading a book and just doing other things. Now, I've been watching football for over 40 years, right? So I've seen, things on the sidelines just as far as just from a fan's perspective and just different things. And one thing I noticed, I don't know if you ever noticed this, after A.J. Brown catches a touchdown touchdown, let's just keep it with that. I rarely ever see him and Jalen go and have any conversation, even on the bench. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe they're not showing it. But I never see Jalen over talking to A.J. Brown. After a big play, after a touchdown, none of that stuff. So, and once again, it could just be me. Could just be me looking. Who knows? But when you are in a position, think about you in your everyday life, where there's certain things that you want to accomplish as a person, right? There's certain things that you want to do. We all have certain things that we want to accomplish. And yes, we do want to do the things that may seem as though they're best for the team. But let's face it, everybody still has their own individual accolades that they want to reach. People still have their own things that they want to accomplish for themselves, their families, or whatever. So let's look at some of his stats. All right. And then we'll talk about kind of what he said even after the Super Bowl that kind of had me a little perplexed. So let's see. This year, halfway through the season, because we have 17 games, we've played 8, so almost halfway through the season. Or actually, almost halfway through, or about mid. This year, he has 29 catches, receptions for 395 yards. 45 yards is the longest one. And the biggest problem probably with him is only 3 touchdowns. Now, this is a guy who typically will give you over 1,000 yards, multiple touchdowns. And so I could see where his frustration comes in at. First game of the year against Dallas, he only had 1 catch for 8 yards. Second game, he had 5 catches for only 27 yards. And another glaring one against September 28th against the Buccaneers, he only had 2 catches for 7 yards. So now, can you just imagine going into work and having that type of productivity, knowing that you are way better than that? Knowing that you can do more than that, and knowing that the person that you may have the biggest rift on the team with is the guy who's responsible for throwing you the ball. Because let's face it, if Jalen doesn't throw him the ball, he gets no receptions, just like nobody else on the team. And there's no way you can tell me that A.J. Brown is not open. Typically, I would be the type of person to say, you know what, AJ, just chill out, man. You know what I mean? You're doing all right. But then I look back on certain stuff. And I say, even what he was saying after the Super Bowl, how it didn't fulfill him the way that he thought it was going to fulfill him. And he was on a podcast, and I remember one of the podcasters saying, well, you know, what if you had 10 catches for 200 yards, some ridiculous stat line. And then, you know, they both kind of chuckled, but he was like, nah, you know, that's not what it is. You know, I just thought that it was going to be something else. And in life, sometimes you have people that they've won in life, but sometimes things just aren't good enough for them. You ever met a person like that before? Where you're like, wow, you know, they're doing good and, you know, they got this going on and they got a nice house, a nice car, seemingly nice spouse or partner or, you know, whatever. But they're just not as happy. Now, that could just be one of the things where, like I said, maybe because he feels like he's not getting enough targets. He feels like he's not getting enough because, let's face it, although it's a team sport, your individual stats make you is marketable to get the type of salary that you get. So when the next time a salary comes up, because he's still young enough to sign another big deal because of his productivity on the field and his talent. But with those kind of numbers I just said to you, who's going to want to give him $35 million a year again? Unless it's somebody who feels as though he was not being utilized properly. And that right now at this point, a lot of people probably do. But the thing is that because football is such a dangerous sport, he could get hurt at any minute. So he has to worry about the here and now. And on top of the fact that he works hard and he wants to show that he's the best receiver in the league. So I get it. And help the team win. But those comments after the Super Bowl, after winning the greatest pinnacle, reaching the highest height of a profession and one of the biggest sporting events in the world, you would think that he would say, hey, look, I feel good. I'm good with that. I feel great, at least in that moment. But days after that, it's kind of like he was, you know, seeming like he was kind of like over it. But, you know, that's his way of looking at things. My final thoughts on this. Do I think that A.J. Brown will be here next year? I'm doubtful. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm doubtful. First is that you're already paying Smitty, Devontae Smith, number 6 on the other side. You're already paying him upwards of $26 million a year. You re-up and gave Saquon more money. Eventually, you're probably going to have to re-up on Jalen's deal. Jalen Hurts, that is. You probably have to sign Jalen Carter and what's the other big man? Jordan Davis to huge deals. So there's probably just not going to be enough money to go around, especially for somebody because the quarterback's not going anywhere. Jalen Hurts is not going anywhere. But the one thing that can't happen is that you can't have a quarterback who feels like there's an issue with one of his star players every week. Because as great as A.J. Brown is, believe me, they will find somebody to replace him. So do I think A.J. Brown will be here next year? No. I think he'll be traded. I think that they will give good money for him next year. I think they want to finish this year out, possibly make a run, win another Super Bowl. And like I always say, that's why when you get to a Super Bowl, you want to win it. Because you never know who's going to be around for the next go-round. And to be honest with you, after this go round, I don't see no more A.J. Brown. But you tell me what you think. Y'all got to start commenting too. I'm serious. I don't care if we only get 15, 16 views. Y'all got to start commenting. And to the biggest football fan I know, happy birthday, Uncle Harry. I appreciate you. Your Chiefs are doing good. I'm glad they got smoked the other day. And that's just is what it is. And speaking of football, you know what a lot of those guys in football do? Guess what they continue to do? Live life. Don't let life live you.